could go to a marketplace in many different places in the world, and you could buy a slave, like you could buy some clothes, like you could buy some food. You could go to the marketplace and you could buy a slave. Now I want you to imagine, try and imagine it, and try and visualize it. Try and imagine yourself there at the slave market. But what I want you to really try and imagine is that you are one of the slaves. You are one of those people, those unfortunate people, that is going to be sold as a slave. Think about that. Imagine you're standing there in the marketplace. Maybe you're chained up, and people are looking at you. Someone out there is going to be thinking of buying you, of purchasing you, and then you will belong to that person, and that person will be able to do with you whatever they like. What sort of master would you like to have? What sort of master would you like to be a slave to? And then think about something else. I'm sure that deep in your heart you will be hoping at this stage, you will be praying that there's another type of master that you don't get. A cruel master, an unkind master, a hard master. Why don't we imagine something even worse than that? Imagine you're not bought by one master, but imagine you're bought by 5 or 6. In other words, 5 or 6 people get together and they say, well, we can't afford a slave by ourselves, but if we each put in some money, then together we can buy a slave. So imagine now, you are one human being owned by 5 or 6 different people. Imagine that. How would your life be? How do you think your life is going to be? Master A, master number 1 will say to you, do this. Master B will say, do that. Master C will say, do that. Master D will say, do this. Master E will say that. Every single master is telling you to do a different thing. How is your life going to be? Your life will be terrible. Your life will be a very distressing life, a very uncomfortable life. Yet I think that I have already described the life of most of you right now. Think about it. Your parents want you to do this thing. Your friends want you to do something else. Your wife, your husband, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, they want you to do something different. Your culture and your tradition tells you you should do something else. And you yourself, you don't feel like doing any of those things. You feel like doing something altogether different. That's exactly the situation. We are a slave to many masters. Which one shall we please? Who shall we obey? Each one is calling us in a different direction. What a terrible, miserable, unhappy life most of you are leading. Let's go back to Islam. Let's really now understand what Islam is all about. Islam is about being a slave to one master, submitting only to one criterion, to one idea and one concept of what is right and wrong and good and evil, what we should do and what we shouldn't do, what is appropriate behavior and what is inappropriate behavior. One master, one guidance, one way. So who is better? The one who submits to one master, who is merciful and kind and forgiving and knows what is good for us and would only guide us to what is good for us. This is the example of the one who submits to Allah, the all-wise, all-knowing, all-hearing, all-seeing, merciful, compassionate creator of the heavens and the earth, who has revealed his guidance in the Quran, and who sent his messenger Muhammad, may God's peace and blessings be upon him, to be a living example of how to follow that guidance from God. And that is why the Prophet Muhammad said that he was happy, he was proud to be called a slave of Allah. Because, believe me, all of us are slaves to someone or to something. It's just a question who you choose and what you choose to be a slave and a servant to. Therefore, Islam means submission to Allah, to be a servant to Allah, to be the slave of Allah. And so if you were to ask me, Abdur Raheem, what do you think is right and what do you think is wrong? What do you think is good and what do you think is evil? What do you think is the right way to behave and the wrong way to behave? What do you think are the good manners and the bad manners? I would tell you, this knowledge has been revealed by Allah. I believe what is right is that which Allah, God, the Creator, the all-wise and the all-knowing and the most merciful, He has said and He has taught and He has revealed that which is right. And what do I think is wrong? It's what God has said is wrong. And what's the right way to behave and the wrong way to behave? That is the criterion that has been revealed by God. And my life is a life that is peaceful, a life that is tranquil, a life that has clear direction. I'm not confused about who I have to please. I'm not confused about who I have to obey. I'm not confused about what I need to do in my life and what guidance I need to follow. Because for me as a Muslim, for me as someone, and the word Muslim means someone who follows Islam, makes Islam. A Muslim is someone who follows Islam. So Islam means submission to God. So a Muslim is someone who submits themselves to the will of God. That's what it means to be a Muslim. To follow God's guidance and to believe that God's guidance is the best guidance. And to believe that the guidance from the Creator is the one that will truly give us the real success in life. Yes, all of us are looking to be successful. All of us are looking to be happy. But the true happiness comes from living our life in a way that is pleasing to our Creator. Because God knows, our Creator knows, Allah knows what is best for us. Even if sometimes our desires don't accept it or don't like it, the wise person realizes and understands that the guidance, the perfect guidance and revelation from Allah is what is going to bring us peace and true tranquility into our life. So this is the concept of what Islam means. To go back to my beginning, to go back to the points that I was making in the beginning, just to remind ourselves that all of us are following some laws, all of us are following some rules, all of us have some limitations that dictate the way that we behave. It's really up to you to choose where you take that guidance from. Muslims believe that the best guidance is Allah's guidance. The best way is God's way. And how do we know? From where do we get the information from? That what is it that God wants from us? What is it that Allah wants from us? How do we know? And where do we get this information as to what is right and to what is wrong and to what is good and what is evil? From where do we get this knowledge and this information? We know that from the Quran. The Quran is the words of Allah. The Quran are the actual uncreated words of God that were revealed to Prophet Muhammad 1,400 years ago, over a period of 23 years, and that was collected together in one book soon after the death of Prophet Muhammad. This is the Quran that we have with us today. But the Quran is not the only guidance, because Allah in His mercy also gave the Prophet Muhammad the task to live the Quran. So the Quran is the words of Allah, but the Prophet Muhammad, he was a type of living example of how to follow that guidance from Allah, how to follow that revelation from the Creator of the heavens and the earth. And that's why his sunnah, or his way, is so important. Because the way of the Prophet really teaches us how to be a perfect, or as perfect as we can be in this life, to be a perfect human being. Because the perfect human being is the one who submits themselves, who obeys God completely and utterly. And the more we obey God in every aspect of our life, the more happy, the more peaceful, the more content